Most gardeners put their tools away in August because they think the season is basically over. That is the single most expensive mistake in home gardening, and I mean that literally, because right now, this month, is actually the second planting season, and it can produce almost as much food as everything you grew all spring. There are 25 crops you can put in the ground in the next few weeks that will be ready to harvest before the first hard frost, and some of them will actually taste better than anything you grew in June, because cool fall weather makes vegetables sweeter, not weaker. Stick with me, because crop number 9 is one almost nobody thinks to replant in August, and it can go from seed to harvest in under 30 days, which makes it one of the highest value plantings on this entire list. Before we get into the list, here is the one thing you need to understand about August planting, because it changes everything about how you use this video. Every crop on this list falls into one of two categories: fast crops that need to go from seed to harvest before your first frost date, and cold, hardy crops that can actually keep growing and improving in flavor after a light frost hits them. The fast crops are a race against the calendar. The cold, hardy crops are the opposite. They actually want that frost, because it is what triggers the sugars that make them taste so good. Once you know which category something falls into, you know exactly how late you can push the planting date in your own zone. And by the end of this video, you will be able to look at your own garden beds and know exactly what still fits before winter. One more thing worth mentioning before we start. August planting is not just about squeezing in one more harvest, it is also about soil. A second round of crops keeps roots actively working the ground, keeps weeds from taking over bare patches, and means you are not staring at empty dirt for the next 4 months while everyone else's garden goes quiet. Number 1. Lettuce. Lettuce is the easiest possible re-entry point into fall gardening because it germinates in days and is ready to cut in as little as 30 days for baby leaf varieties. The one problem gardeners run into in August is heat, because lettuce seed can actually refuse to germinate at all above 80 degrees, going dormant instead of sprouting. The fix is simple. Start it in a shaded spot, under a shade cloth, or even chill the seed packet in the refrigerator for a couple of days before sowing to trick the seed into thinking conditions are cooler than they actually are. Number 2. Carrots. Carrots planted in August are, honestly, better than the ones you grow in spring, because cool fall temperatures trigger the roots to convert stored starches into sugar as a natural antifreeze response. That process makes them noticeably sweeter after the first frost hits. Sow them now in loose, rock-free soil, and you can leave them in the ground under a thick layer of mulch and pull fresh, sweet carrots straight out of frozen ground well into winter in a lot of climates. Thin the seedlings early, because crowded carrots fight each other for root space, and you end up with a bed of skinny, twisted roots instead of the thick, straight ones you actually want on your plate. Number 3. Beets. Beets do double duty, because you get the root and you also get edible greens that taste like a milder, slightly sweeter version of chard. They handle cool weather well, and much like carrots, they actually improve in flavor after a light frost. An August sowing gives you a harvest window that can stretch for months if you time it right and keep the bed consistently moist while the roots are sizing up. Number 4. Turnips. Turnips are one of the fastest root crops you can grow, often ready in as little as 45 days from seed. Plant them now for tender fall roots with a peppery bite, and do not skip the greens, because turnip greens are one of the most nutrient-dense leafy vegetables you can grow, and most gardeners throw them straight in the compost pile without ever actually tasting them, which is honestly a shame. Number 5. Radishes. If you want something on your plate within a month, radishes are your answer. Some varieties mature in as little as 3 to 4 weeks from seed to harvest. Because they are so fast, you can sow a fresh row every 2 weeks all the way into fall, which gives you a rolling harvest of crisp radishes instead of one giant batch that all comes ready on the same day. Number 6. Spinach. Spinach is a heavy feeder, so amend your bed with compost before you plant, but the payoff is a crop that actually thrives as temperatures drop. You can harvest it as a cut and come again crop, taking the outer leaves and working your way toward the center, straight through fall, and in a lot of regions, right into winter under a simple row cover. Number 7. Arugula. This is the fastest true leafy green on this entire list, often ready to harvest in about 3 weeks flat. Cool weather also mellows out its naturally peppery bite, so a fall crop of arugula tends to taste noticeably milder and better balanced than the sharper, hotter version you get from a spring planting that matured in rising summer heat. Number 8. Kale. Kale is famous among fall gardeners for one specific reason: frost actually improves it instead of damaging it. The plant converts stored starches to sugar as a natural protection mechanism against cold, which means kale harvested after a light frost is noticeably sweeter and far less bitter than kale harvested in the middle of summer heat. Plant now and be patient. The best kale of the year is still weeks away. If you have only ever eaten summer-grown kale and found it tough or bitter, a proper fall crop harvested after that first cold snap will genuinely change your mind about the vegetable entirely. Number 9. Bok choy. This is the crop I mentioned at the start. Baby bok choy varieties can go from seed to harvest in 30 to 40 days, and they handle light frost noticeably better than most other leafy vegetables, which makes them one of the highest value, lowest risk plantings on this entire list for a start this late in the season. It also transplants well if you started some indoors earlier in summer and forgot about it. Number 10. Mizuna. If you have not grown this one, it is worth the seed packet. Mizuna is a Japanese salad green that grows fast, tolerates cool weather and even light frost without complaint, and has a mild, slightly peppery flavor that works equally well raw in salads or quickly sautéed as a cooked green alongside garlic. Number 11. Swiss chard. Chard is incredibly forgiving and keeps producing right up until a hard freeze actually kills the plant. An August sowing gives you a plant that is just hitting its stride, right as your summer vegetables start winding down. And a single healthy plant can keep feeding you leaves for months with regular harvesting. Number 12. Collard greens. Collards are one of the most cold-tolerant crops you can grow in a home garden, and like kale, their flavor actually improves noticeably after frost. Plant now for a harvest that can stretch well into the colder months in a lot of regions, and the plants themselves can survive conditions that would kill almost everything else in the bed. Number 13. Mustard greens. Fast-growing, spicy, and genuinely cold-tolerant, mustard greens are one of the quickest ways to add a bold, peppery kick to fall meals. They mature quickly enough that even a mid to late August sowing usually has plenty of time to produce a solid, full harvest before conditions turn. Number 14. Broccoli. This one takes a bit more planning, because broccoli needs 70 to 80 days depending on the variety you choose. But fall broccoli avoids the bolting problems that plague spring plantings whenever a random early heat wave hits. Start it now, count backward from your average first frost date, and you get heads that form slowly and evenly in cool, stable weather instead of bolting into flower under stress. If your season is already tight, look specifically for a variety marketed as fast maturing or short season, since the difference between a 60-day variety and a 90-day variety can be the entire difference between harvesting and losing the crop to frost. Number 15. Cauliflower. Same logic as broccoli applies here. It develops its head during cool, stable weather without the wild temperature swings that spring throws at it, which usually means fewer problems with loose or discolored heads and a cleaner, more reliable harvest. Plant in August for a fall crop that matures right on schedule instead of fighting the weather the whole way. Number 16. Cabbage. Fall cabbage is genuinely more flavorful than spring cabbage because it experiences far less heat stress while it is actually forming its head. Space plants a solid 12 inches apart, keep the soil consistently moist, and mulch heavily if your late summer temperatures are still running hot when you plant, since cabbage does not tolerate drying out while it is establishing. Number 17. Kohlrabi. This is an underused crop that deserves a lot more attention than it gets. It matures fast, tolerates cold well, and has a mild, slightly sweet flavor that sits somewhere between broccoli stems and a crisp radish. It is one of the easiest wins on this entire list for gardeners who have never grown it before and want a quick confidence boost. Number 18. Peas. Early August is actually your last practical window to get a fall pea crop into the ground in most zones, because peas need the days to still be reasonably warm for the seed to germinate reliably, but the plants themselves mature during which peas genuinely prefer over the humid heat of summer. Number 19. Bush beans. If your soil is still warm from summer, early August is your last realistic sowing date for a fall bean crop. Choose a fast-maturing variety with a short days to maturity listed on the packet, and you can squeeze in one more full harvest before frost shuts the whole bed down for the season. Number 20. Garlic. This one is different from everything else on the list, because you are not harvesting it this fall. You are planting it now for next summer. Late summer and early fall is exactly when serious growers get their garlic cloves into the ground. So if you want a real full-sized harvest next year, this is the month to start planning and preparing that bed, working in compost now so it has time to break down before you actually plant cloves in the coming weeks. Number 21. Green onions. Fast, forgiving, and almost impossible to mess up even for a first-time gardener. Green onions handle cool fall weather well and can often be harvested in a matter of weeks, which makes them a reliable filler crop for any small gap that opens up in your beds this month. Number 22. Endive. This is a fall specialty green that actually gets better as the season goes on, because cooler temperatures reduce the bitterness that puts a lot of people off endive when it is grown and harvested in summer heat. Give it a try now if you have written it off before. Number 23. Rutabaga, a close cousin to the turnip, with a slightly sweeter, nuttier flavor once it is cooked. It needs a bit more time in the ground than turnips do, so an early to mid-August planting is genuinely your best window to get a full-sized root before the ground freezes solid in colder zones. Number 24. Parsnips. Parsnips are a patience crop. They take a long season to size up, but the payoff is worth the wait, because like carrots, their flavor sweetens dramatically after exposure to frost. Get them in the ground now, and you will be pulling sweet, nutty parsnips out of the garden well into the colder months of the year. Fresh seed matters more with parsnips than almost any other crop on this list. Old seed germinates poorly, so if your packet has been sitting in a drawer since last year, it is worth picking up a fresh one before you plant. Number 25. Dill. Rounding out the list with an herb that most people only think to plant in spring and never consider again. Dill actually grows well in the cooler, more stable conditions of early fall, and a late summer sowing gives you a fresh, tender batch just in time for canning and pickling season if you are putting up produce for winter. So here is how you actually use this list instead of just watching it and forgetting it by tomorrow. Grab your average first frost date for your zone. It takes about 10 seconds to look up and work backward from that date. Fast crops like radishes, arugula, lettuce, and bok choy can go into the ground right up until about 6 weeks before that date, no earlier planning required. Anything that needs 70 days or more to mature, like broccoli, cauliflower, or parsnips, needs to go in now this week, not later in the month, because there is very little margin left. And the cold hardy crops, kale collards, carrots, spinach, chard, those are the ones you actually want to time carefully so they are maturing right as that first frost hits, because the cold snap is exactly what makes them taste their best. Clear out whatever has bolted or finished producing in your beds this week. Refresh the soil with a little fresh compost, and get seeds in the ground, because every single week you wait in August is a week of harvest you are simply not getting back this year. Walk your beds today, make a quick list of what has finished, and match it against this list before the weekend is over, since the gardeners who actually eat fresh vegetables in November are the ones who treated this month as a second spring instead of the end of the season. If this just saved your growing season, subscribe, because next week we are covering the 5 biggest mistakes gardeners make with fall planting that quietly wreck the harvest before it even has a real chance to get started. See you in the next one.